Good.
All right, everybody, we'll call the August meeting of the Community Development Committee to order. I'm John Strand, your chair. Thanks, everybody, for attending. We have some new people at the table representing different entities, and we have another great agenda today from our Planning and Community Development team to update us on information that's critical to our mission. So let's start over here to my right, and with the school district's rep. If you would all introduce yourselves, tell us who you are. If you're new, give us a little bit of a sense of where you come from, and then we'll go from there.
All right. Thank you, John. It is on. Ours, you have to press the button. So, hello, I am Jennifer Benson. I have been serving as a member of the Fargo School Board for the last, it has been 7 years already. Time flies. This is my second term, and I am happy to be here on behalf of Fargo School Board.
Gotcha.
Should be okay.
All right. Mark Puppy with the Home Builders Association of Fargo Moorhead. I'm with the manage the public affairs and communications within the association and making sure builders in our area and the state are fairly represented and making sure people have access and attainability when it comes to housing.
Linda Klebe, I'm a member at large.
The longest running standing member in the history of the committee.
Yes.
Sorry.
true, though.
Continue on.
Good afternoon. I'm Mike Rethinger. I'm the Assistant City Administrator, City of Fargo, and I work with the elected officials in city administration.
Sam McDonald, member at large.
Chris Brungart, Fargo Housing and Redevelopment Authority. I'm Deputy Director there, and I'm new to this housing game. It's a great, great deal.
Good afternoon. My name is Cindy Graffio. I'm the new Executive Director for the Downtown Community Partnership for Downtown Fargo.
And I see somebody else joining us.
Good afternoon. I'm Thomas Hill with United Way of Cass Clay.
Thank you, Thomas. I could, continue on picking on people, but I won't belabor the fact that Mark Puppy's family hails from the same part of North Dakota that I do. He's right up at the road at Hensel, North Dakota. I'm from Crystal, North Dakota, and actually Hensel is Canton City on the map. That's my little trivia. There is no Hensel. It's about 4 miles. Anyway, we'll continue on.
Nice town, Commissioner.
And his dad wrote a great book about North Dakotans and people, so we'll. Welcome to the committee. We have, let's go over to the staff, if we could, and we'll update us. Miranda's also letting us know we have some folks on the phone. Who's on the phone? Is it the mayor?
Mayor Mahoney, I'm on the phone and glad that the committee is coming together. And as John says, I hope we learn a lot today.
Thank you, Mayor, for joining up with us on the phone. And there was somebody else, wasn't there, Miranda?
Commissioner Strand, this is Rocky Schneider. I'm chair of the Planning Commission, so I'm a new member on this board as well. Linda was serving on the board when I used to serve as well, probably 10, 15 years ago. So it's good to see some continuity.
And it's good to have you here at on our community development, Rocky. Anybody else, Miranda, on the phone? Okay, let's go to introduce our staff, and then we'll continue on with the agenda if we could. Okay, Nicole and Tia Braseth and Miranda Wolf. Okay, and we have Bruce Tarleson in the back. I thought you retired. Soon. Okay. Does anybody have any changes in the agenda in front of us? If not, the agenda will stand as presented. And are there any corrections or changes to the minutes from the last meeting? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the April meeting.
So moved.
So moved by Chris. Is our second?
I'll second.
Second by Sam. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Okay, got it. Now, we have, next item is looking at the meeting schedule. We're focusing in and honing in more clearly on our mission. And so as you can see, we'll be meeting, our next meeting will be in August. I'm sorry, November, then February, May, and August, and November. Does everybody have that in front of them? So for the sake of the recording, the next meeting schedule will be November 16th, February 15th, May 17th, August 16th, and again, November 15th. Could I have a motion to approve that, just for formality's sake?
So moved.
Been moved. Is there a second? That was Thomas, was it? Okay.
Second.
Second by Chris. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay? Okay, that is our schedule going forward. If ever we need emergency meetings or anything, we will alert you. But this is going to be our roadmap into the next year. All righty. Do we have anybody in the audience for public comment? Not seeing anybody, we'll continue on. And then now we'll pass the microphone and the dais to Nicole Crutchfield, our Director of our Planning Department.
Good afternoon, Community Development Committee and Chair, Commissioner John Strand. Today, we're excited to introduce three guests to do a 10 to 15-minute presentation. I will be a little bit of a timekeeper to make sure we all have time for everybody to participate fully. And so if one of our presentations go long, I might inject a little bit. But we do have a 4 o'clock library board meeting in this room, so that's kind of our framework. But just to, so that's the logistics. Just to kind of recap from where we left off in April, and to bring some of our new members online. We recently, over the last few months, have been talking with the Community Development Committee about kind of focusing our work on housing and housing strategies, housing, all different types of housing, right? And sometimes it can get confusing when we talk about market-driven housing versus affordable housing. How do you define affordability? There's a huge continuum with housing. And so to help lay out that pathway, on the slide here in front of you, and I can follow this up with an email on this, but we have all different types from market rate housing to working with our shelters and emergency housing, stabilizing housing, supportive housing. We have lots of different partners. And our job with Community Development Block Grant, community development work is to make sure these pieces are functioning. And we are, staff and through our HUD funds, kind of the gap filler or the glue that connects one piece to another piece. We realize there's kind of nuances between each of these categories that overlap. And when when someone becomes unsheltered and getting into maybe all the way into advanced market rate housing, there's a whole lot of people that become part of that conversation, and depending on the individual's needs or goals, the factors might be different. Today, last time in April, we focused on some of our emergency shelter providers. We had guests from New Life Center, our presentation partners in housing, and Gladys Ray with our emergency sheltering, and harms reduction staff talking about, and then we had Beyond Shelter talking about some of the trends and needs that they see. And for anybody watching from the public, those are available online if you'd like to watch those presentations. There's a lot of great talking points from there. And the purpose of these invited guests is to help us get a deeper dive into some of their day-to-day nuances. And I prepped them for Commissioner Strand's famous question: if you had a magic wand, how could the city best help you, or what do you see in our community? So we've pre-prepped them all to be able to talk to that a little bit today. So today I'm really excited to have Jill Elliott with Fargo Housing Redevelopment Authority Director, and who's obviously probably needs no introduction with her longevity with the Housing Authority. We also have Trenton with the Community Land Trust. And then we have Chanel Wilmer on speaker here, calling in from Bismarck. She's our Continuum of Care Director. And so today we're going to be really kind of honing in on that supportive housing need, as well as that 60 to 80% AMI category as they overlap into the world they work in. And so I think we have Jill as first. First, are there any preparatory questions before we kind of go into it? Or if not, we'll just hand it over to Jill.
Okay, wonderful. And Chris is going to join me. Good afternoon, everybody. It's really great to be here. Nicole, you'll probably have to do like the awards music where you cut me off, because once I started talking about housing, I don't like to quit. So I've been with the Housing Authority for 43 years. When I started with the Housing Authority, we had the high-rise, New Horizons, and then the 150 homes we built, like after the tornado went through. So we now have about 2,500 units and go over 3 spectrums of HUD offices. We do then complete continuum of care in housing. We go from homeless programs to home ownership. So we cover just about everything there is in home ownership, and we house, we meet every kind of community issue, every problem that a family can meet. We have a very bilingual group of tenants, a high number of folks that were moved here through refugees resettlements, so we speak about 50 languages. Our website is translated into 5 different languages. Lots of folks with different types of disabilities, supportive housing needs, seniors, and families with minors. This is who we serve. These are our numbers just recently when we did them. Again, we serve about, at any given time, close to 5,000 people in this community. There are 4 housing authorities in this area, in Cass and Clay, and we have agreements that if anyone can be housed in Clay County, they can go over there. Clay County folks can come over here with their vouchers so that we don't put any blockades in the way. So that has worked very well, that we've got that kind of issues. We've got portability with the state of North Dakota. So these are we'll just go through some of our programs and then go into Nicole's questions that she talked about. So this is our portfolio right now. We go over the 3 offices of HUD, public housing. That's where HUD builds it. Those are the units that are not so popular anymore. They have higher vacancies. Of course, you're all familiar with the Lashkowitz high-rise. That's our big elephant right now. It's the largest residential building in the state of North Dakota. They say it's the largest concrete lift slab building in the world. And Chris will be talking about that in a bit. We have our scattered sites that are just homes built throughout Pioneer Manor, and that's our public housing. We are working on, of course, we have repositioned New Horizons. That has now become a tax credit building. Lashkowitz High Rise has been disposed, and we will build a new property there. And we are also looking at 14-4, which is at 25th and 18th Street, which is something that we are ready to renovate and do something different there. Vouchers, of course, are things like Section 8, where tenants go to private landlords. We usually have 600 to 700 folks on landlords in that program. Tenant protection vouchers are the ones from the high-rise, everyone moving out. We have 100 Vouchers, which is the veterans. We were the first one leased up in the country. We have emergency housing, which we just received. That comes with a really nice little bag of money for the clients to be successful, about $3,500 per client. Mainstream is for young under 62. We consider that young, right? Mm-hmm. The older we get, that are disabled. And regular vouchers. We project-based vouchers. We're also in the Office of Multifamily, and then, of course, the Continuum of Care, and then low-income tax credit. In 2001, the Housing Authority started a nonprofit, and we named it Beyond Shelter, Inc. We worked with that until about 2013, when HUD forced all housing authorities to separate from their nonprofit arms, and we built about 13 projects at that time. And we're in the process of redoing the authority to repurchase. Again, there's some things on our Housing Choice Voucher program, and that's our team there. They're really mission-oriented, just a great group of people. Those are our specialty vouchers. Family unification is one that brings families that have been taken, children have been taken away from their family. Many times it's meant child abuse by Cass County Social Services. They have went into treatment, done whatever. They're putting the family together. That comes with housing and housing supports. The emergency housing vouchers are the ones we just got. There were 4 of us in the state that got it. Again, this is for folks that are disabled, risk of homelessness, recently homeless, or victims of violence. And they come with that $3,500. That's an example of our public housing. Chris just got done. Chris is constantly doing the CAP funds. Chris, I'll let you talk about that.
Well, each year HUD sends out to each public housing authority amount of capital improvement funds. That's prorated number of units we have. We use these funds to maintain the properties we have and improve them and make them more livable. Here's an example of one of our 4-bedroom houses. It's interesting when you have larger families that are in need. There aren't a lot of apartments out there that have 4 houses for how many children go into a 4-bedroom, quite a few. But you can just see this is what they start to look like afterwards. It's certainly not a place I'd be ashamed to put any of my family members in.
John, if I can just answer your question, what would be my magic ask is to put garages on all of those. When we did our homeownership program, when we sold 40 of our units, that's how we funded BSI. We sold 40 homeownership units to the folks who lived in their public housing unit, and the city assisted us with putting garages on. Right now, in our whole inventory of 170 homes, we have 4 garages. You can't get people out of there with dynamite. They absolutely adore them. They've got big trees, they've got big yards, they pay 30% of their income. However, if you're in a public housing unit without a garage in Fargo, North Dakota, people typically put their name on the public housing wait list and the voucher. Well, after they've had a year of having to mow their own lawn, dig out their driveway every day, start their car in 30 below weather, they're usually ready to jump into a voucher. So it's very often like just a round table, swinging door. Okay, Cooper House, many of you are familiar with that, our first Housing First project in North Dakota, in Fargo. It's been great. Folks that had typically maybe had been homeless 10, 12, 20 years, some of our folks, and they've remained housed for over 10 years now. So it's been really successful, and we're pretty excited about it. And there's now 3 in North Dakota that are very slim, based on the Cooper House model.
My magic wand would be more supportive housing. Now that would be mine. There's as we're trying to relocate our current tenants in the Lashquitz high rise, we're down to the mid-30s now, and these people are very difficult to find housing for. And if we have more places like Cooper House, that'd be a great place for our community. And I think Nicole's have a lot of these on her wish list also. We talk about several locations, so that would be mine.
Nicole's, one of her questions were, what trends do you see? We have our tenants have such deep needs. Child abuse, sexual abuse, mental illness, physical disabilities, you name it. It is just a real, just a whole cadre of things, much more than we've ever seen. So just more supportive services. Of course, the 1915I coming into North Dakota is going to be huge. It isn't completely established. We're working on it with different partners also, but supportive housing, landlords that will take it and focus on it, and that's really our niche, is that type of service. New Horizons is where I started my career. It was one of 7 in the nation. It was the second one built. It is the most awesome building. If you have never been there, completely wheelchair accessible. A lot of places say they are, but this one really was. They took the contractors, took folks in wheelchairs, canes, crutches, you name it, blind, and took them through. They built mock-ups in a huge empty parking garage. And then they'd go through and see what couldn't you use, and then they'd start all over again. And it really is quite a marvelous, marvelous building.
This is a good example of a funding opportunity that HUD provides out to convert public housing units into low-income housing units. It's just a different funding to actually rehabilitate the entire unit and then take it off the public housing rolls and put it back onto the regular tax rolls.
We started out with 650 public housing units. We will be down to 225. Pioneer Manor is another public housing property, Chris is working on those mod units. seniors, disabled.
This is another area is one bedroom, entire 46 units, one bedroom unit. I see a lot of need going forward for one bedrooms going forward also. I think we can start taking a look at the Fargo diversion being constructed and the number of workers estimate bringing in and Amazon and all whatnot that comes along with. There's going to be a huge need for more affordable housing in our market, and I think there's going to be a rush for all of us trying to meet those needs.
These are a couple of properties that we picked up just to keep them affordable. We'll be looking at rehabbing those too.
We discussed some of these with the Colonial Burrell buildings. That's the one on the right of the screen is the Burrell building, and that's just a beautiful building. Commissioner Strand, you certainly know how you love those great buildings. We've discussed about possibility of redeveloping this area, and every developer I've talked to is we have to find a way to try to keep that facade on there, and however we have to work that in there, because you just don't see that type of brickwork and facades around. Otherwise, the inside is it's a 110-year-old building or whatever it is, and it's starting to it's meet its lifespan. So we have to find ways to redevelop that, and that's included in your renewal plan for TIF funding. Here's some of our other units that we have around downtown. We have Herald Square, has Hill Law Offices in there. You see the backside of 220 Broadway, which is where Twist Restaurant is, and you see a couple of the units here up in 220 Broadway. They're you know, when I was in college or a young professional, I would happily live down there. So it's a great spot. So
Those were a couple of the first, our name has redevelopment. Not all housing authorities are redevelopment authorities, and this was some of the first projects we did. When we moved downtown into our building, we didn't dare walk by ourselves. And now look at it. Goodness, it's just been such a thriving renovation downtown.
perfect example of workforce housing. So if you work downtown at a bar or a restaurant or something that's a little more low income, still have the ability to have that affordable housing and live where you work and play. So
Yeah, that was our first run with owning restaurants, and we've owned several. Church Townhomes was one of our first properties for BSI to build. 8 units, family, really nice. This is something exciting coming, and there's a big hole in the ground. I will just say I did not name it.
Where did they get the name?
Asked my kids, they said, what a cool coincidence that is.
Anyway, just to
named
connect
after
those,
Sam.
that's named after Joe. Sorry.
Our board did that.
It's a great building. It's going in there. It's going to be a 55 and older building. Was it 96 units? 20% of it's all handicapped accessible. 1 and 2 bedroom units. There's washer and dryer units inside each unit. Kind of community spaces, Wi-Fi, everything, underground parking. So it's we're taking steps forward in affordable housing in this community. So all these are ranging from 30 to 80% of average median income, area median income, sorry. You see the hole on the right, that's probably changed already. They're already pouring foundations. Stem walls will be going up here. We have precast concrete panels. Those are going up, so you'll see them going up out of the ground pretty quick. So it's really exciting. It's been a struggle to get to this point, but we're here.
The best dream of this, though, is this, the assisted living services will have Tammy's Angels or some, a variety of assisted living services that you can age in place. You can have meals, there'll be a hair and nail salon, there'll be a therapy room that you can age without spending your life's fortune.
Last Ritz High Rise. That's the new project on our scopes right now. We're in process of all our pre-development. We're going through a new environmental assessment. We changed our application from a disposition to take possession of the building to a demolition disposition. There's about a $10 million gap to rehab the building versus building new. So we're looking at imploding that. We've been working very closely with Epic Development just to the north of us there, and their process of where they're building their new tower. Should be seeing some site layouts coming out here in the next few weeks, some cost estimates, and we're gonna be talking to North Dakota Housing Finance about 4 and 9% tax credits. So this is a big one. Like I said, we still have our 24/7 security inside the building, mid-30s for tenants. It's had its ride, that's for sure, from when it was first originally conceived to now.
So if you want to have a tour on the rooftop, you let us know, because the days are getting shorter. It's the best view in the state off the top of the high rise. All of our new staff go. That's one of their field days. Their field trip days is when we go around and we go to the top of the tower. We do a lot of supportive services. This one was on vaccination sites that we do. We have 3 service coordinators. We work with just about every agency in town. And it's the only way that we can be successful is working collaboratively with lots and lots of partners. We have a self-sufficiency, we have gardens, a daycare center. This is the fabulous Tanya. She's our communications coordinator. If you ever need to get hold of us or do something, give Tanya a call. And then this is just a copy of our website. It has a little widget that looks like a little paper doll on the side. It will read to you. It will, if you're dyslexic, it will change the font. If it's, big font, little font, it'll read to you in 5 languages. So we worked a long time in making this really accessible, and we're really proud of it. So I think there's one more. And that's our team. One of our tenants, one of our guys that was homeless, made that. And he's made a bunch of those for us. It says it's puzzling, what does it say? Helping put lives back together, Fargo Housing. So thank you. Nicole, how did we do? We did good. Okay. We'll get the cane. Anything else, Chris, or any of the questions?
Does anybody have any questions at all? I do. I'm just curious with what you see coming, how big a tsunami will hit us when more and more seniors retire or move here to retire? And how prepared do you think we are for meeting their housing needs?
Boy, John, we have been working on that. That's why we started BSI. We did Sunrise, Crossroads, getting ready for just the high rise, to go down. The grain of North Dakota tops out at what? In the 20s sometime, right? Is it about 2023? There's a lot of vouchers. We did not see elderly apply for a lot of programs. Now, as people are we're getting more into that age. I'm in that age, the late 60s, 70s. I think people are starting to apply more, but at first we didn't see a lot of it. So I don't know. We'll see. We're certainly trying. BSI just did the home fields, the North Skies, worked with that, Crossroads, Sunrise, but they're building some in Moorhead. So certainly trying to keep with it, and lots of vouchers.
Cass County has built theirs.
They built a beautiful one, Cass County Housing Authority.
So I think about everyone's going out there applying for North Dakota Housing Finance tax credits are all targeted towards 55 and older. Yeah. So I think there's a huge unmet need, and it's just going to keep growing because I think, we continue to empty out all of North Dakota and they're coming to our metropolitan areas. So not only do we have our own population starting to age, we have all our smaller surrounding communities coming here for those services also.
Our biggest problem in North Dakota is we're such a tiny population state, 850,000. Well, that's a city in many places, and that's what our tax credits are based on. So it can fund maybe 4 properties a year, and we really could use many, many more. That's why we couldn't rehab the high rise for all those years. We started that back in 2007, and you could just never cobble enough money together for all of that because of our low population in the state.
Anybody have any questions? Anybody, and also including people on the phone? Thomas.
If I can too, and so in line with Commissioner Strand's questions of are we prepared, but can you speak to the supportive services that are necessary to keep individuals in those housing? You talked about the myriad of needs that folks have, but I know that's a big topic, and so I know it's maybe nuanced, but depending on the vouchers, but overall, how do you feel with supportive services? Are they lacking? Are they good? Could we use more? Is there enough coordination?
Absolutely lacking, I would say. There was an awesome program back when I started for many years called the Homemakers Program, where they went right into people's homes and worked with them, helped them, do laundry, all of those things that keep you housed. That was a social services program. I haven't seen that one come back. One of the largest homeless populations, of course, are seniors, which is horrible. And we see a lot of mental illness, a lot of physical issues, head injuries, chemical dependency, just all of those kinds of things. They're very complicated, many of them, for the ones that we are housing. Many of them they've got such a myriad of needs, so mental health, physical, kind of the things like Cooper has, where there's a nurse, and of course, staff that are there to kind of watch over folks. The navigators, the homeless navigators that you funded are amazing, where they go into homes. The vets have a really great program where they have only 30 clients and they go into their home just about every week. Because really, in order to help people, you need to be in their home. You can't have them come into your office. And then of COVID, when COVID struck, so many, like the human service centers, quit going into they quit seeing clients. And wow, what a disaster that's been for a lot of people, where they were doing pretty well with their supports. They've really fallen off, and hopefully we'll be able to get them back into housing and stable again.
Can't say anything better than Jill does on that, so.
Nicole?
Well, I was just going to say, we are running, I'd like to
Yes.
give time for Trenton and Chanel, and then maybe we can come back to questions
Perfect.
at the end if possible.
Okay.
Thank you. Fargo is always very supportive nationally. You are known as being terribly supportive of affordable housing, so thank you.
Thank you, Jill and Chris. Okay, Nicole, we'll turn it over to whom next?
So we have Chanel Wilmar on the phone or virtually, and maybe I'll prompt Brian Celine to cue us up here.
Are you ready for me, Nicole?
Yes, Chanel, can you hear us?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Well, good afternoon. Like Nicole said, my name is Chanel Willer, and I am the North Dakota Continuum of Care Coordinator for the state. My presentation is going to be quick, so Jill, you ran over a little bit, I think. I was not timing you, but I'll probably be under. So, but I wanted to make sure to leave time for questions after. So the COC, what exactly is it? It's a HUD mandated program that is basically broken down into 3 sections. So we've got the interim rule, and that's the laws and rules for which the Continuum of Care funding and planning operates. The rules reflect the planning process, the definition of homelessness, how to obtain and use your COC program funds. And then it also outlines the data collection and reporting that we have to do for HUD. The program components are the homeless funds used to support individual homeless programs. COC funding can be used for the Homeless Management Information System, or HMIS, transitional housing, rapid rehousing, a combination of transitional and rapid rehousing, permanent supportive housing, or supportive services only projects. Now, those supportive services only projects, only coordinated entry can be, if they're new, they can use some of those funds for coordinated entry. And then there's the regional planning body that is focused on preventing and ending homelessness. This includes our membership, or the planning group that meets on a quarterly basis to carry out the interim rule and manage our homeless response system. The COC planning component of this does incorporate both the interim rule and the program funds. Who's involved? Well, key partners that provide housing and services to persons who are homeless are essential to our planning process. We do welcome anyone who has an interest in preventing and ending homelessness, It is important to note that homeless programs alone cannot prevent and end homelessness. So it takes a broad collaborative with numerous funding sources and strategic partnerships. Funders, policymakers, advocates, housing and service providers like Jill and her group are part of the Continuum of Care. And then also persons with lived experience all contribute to ending homelessness. It's really important to bring those people with lived experience to the table because they know what they need and what would have helped them. So we do have an actual a set aside on our board for lived experience that is a HUD mandate. And so we always make sure to have somebody that has that experience working with us on our board level as well. COC planning brings all of these partners to the table to assure there is a comprehensive, informed, and coordinated approach to how we plan things, how we strategically look at ending veteran homelessness, or I know Fargo's next initiative is ending youth homelessness. So we bring all of those partners to the table to really try and strategize how we can do that. Currently, the North Dakota COC has 160 members representing 80 agencies across the state. Region 5, which includes Cass County and Fargo, has 37 members representing 15 agencies. Our structure is designed to include broad input from consumers at the sub-regional level, local level to regional leaders. The membership is responsible for the big stuff around COC planning, which includes approving COC policies, electing our COC leadership, and approving our HMIS lead agency, and then also the collaborative applicant. North Dakota Housing Finance Agency is the collaborative applicant that moved in the last 18 months from the North Dakota Coalition for Homeless People. And then I was hired to be the coordinator working out of North Dakota Housing Finance Agency. The leadership does include our board and committees. The board is comprised of elected and appointed members, as well as some non-voting advisory seats. They are responsible for assuring COC compliance and guides the work of the Continuum of Care. And then we do have 4 standing committees within North Dakota's COC as well. The local homeless committees or coalitions are sub-regional committees focused on improving the system design through planning, evaluation, implementation, awareness, and then increasing resources at the local level. The collaborative applicant is the fiscal agency for COC planning funds and is responsible for submitting the consolidated application to HUD. So in the US, there's approximately 400 designated COCs nationwide, each having their own leadership, governance, structure, committees and work groups, coordinated assessment systems, policies, and fundings. North Dakota is unique. There's very few states that have just one COC. So we do cover in North Dakota all 53 counties, and we're broken down into 8 regions. Just for example, Minnesota next door has 10 Continuum of Cares. So I want you just for a minute to think about healthcare. A continuum of care model in healthcare successfully manages and supports someone's medical care through a range of health services. This is important because it leads to an improvement of health and potential reduction in costs for the patient. Well, it's the same for the continuum of care. By working together with providers in our area who are committed to ending homelessness, we can improve the process to quickly rehouse individuals and families experiencing homelessness, or even prevent them from becoming homeless. So by enhancing this process and housing people as quickly as possible, it reduces trauma to the individual or family and provides a sense of stability. And then finally, data collection is really important too. The COC works with providers across the state on quality data. That includes the point of time count and the housing inventory count that's done every year in January, system performance measures, and the Fargo-Moorhead State of Homelessness report that's put together by the coalition. And Tom, I know that you're there. United Way is a huge part of that as well. So without the data, we don't get funding, and without funding, we can't end homelessness. Some of the challenges that we're facing, funding is always, and I know right now there's a plethora of it coming into the state, but 98% of the time we don't have all this extra money. So, but funding, resources, and then data collection are probably the biggest challenges right now for the North Dakota Continuum of Care. And it kind of becomes a chicken before the egg situation. In order to get funding, we need data, but we need resources to get the data, and the resources need the funding. So it kind of becomes a, like I said, a chicken and egg. Where do you start and start picking away at that? Fargo has really great resources, and they're really great at collecting their data. So it's not so much an issue in Fargo as it is maybe across the rest of the state. But it does continue to be a little bit of a challenge due to the cross-border collaboration with Moorhead. Our systems, our HMIS systems don't speak to each other right now because of the two different COCs. And so then many agencies use a different system and only put what's required for their funding into HMIS. So we don't always collect all the data that we would like to see in HMIS, but it is something that we continue to try and work through with the local providers there and in collaboration with the West Central Minnesota Continuum of Care. I said previously that the North Dakota Coalition for Homeless People previously housed the Continuum of Care, and so that has been a little bit of a challenge for us. Since it's changed to two separate entities, there's still a struggle of what does the Continuum of Care do and what does North Dakota Coalition for Homeless People do. So we've been working on communicating that and getting the word out to organizations that they are no longer one agency, and just education across the state. The North Dakota Coalition is more focused on advocacy, and then the Continuum of Care is more focused on the process and the policy side of things. Another really big challenge is the different definitions of homelessness. It makes it difficult to get an accurate count across the state. Just for an example, one definition allows students who are couch surfing to be counted as homeless. And if you don't know what couch surfing is, it's jumping from couch to couch and just kind of sleeping wherever you can for the night. And this is a really big issue on our Native American reservations. So that definition allows those students to be counted as homeless. Well, another definition does not. So if a family is hopping from one couch to another, if they enter the Continuum of Care system, they would not actually be considered homeless. And in our point in time count, we wouldn't even count them as homeless. However, the student might be counted at their school as being homeless. So it can make it difficult to help them find housing with certain funding sources, because there are certain sources that you literally have to be homeless, and so then we can't help fund getting them into some housing. With challenges, there are always opportunities. If I can get my slide there we go. I said earlier, there is a lot of money coming into the state right now that could put a huge dent in homelessness for North Dakota. There's the North Dakota Rent Help, the emergency housing vouchers. Jill said the state got 4 regions in the state did receive those. So I have been working. We had to go into a memorandum of understanding between the Housing Authority and the Continuum of Care. So I've been working with those 4 housing authorities on that. There's also the home dollars from the American Rescue Plan, which we still don't know the guidance from HUD and what we'll be able to do with that. There's also the Emergency Solutions Grant, COVID money, which the Department of Commerce is managing. So just a plethora of money right now, and so we really could put a huge dent in homelessness in our state. As the collaborative applicant, we also did submit the Youth Homelessness Demonstration Program grant application that was due at the end of July. And that grant has the potential to bring in $1 million over the next 2 years to North Dakota that would be dedicated to ending youth homelessness. So fingers crossed we will get that funding as well. Coordinated entry has been a struggle across the state since its inception, and coordinated entry takes an individual who presents homeless and takes them through a process to quickly get them rehoused. However, we have been working with each region to implement their process and have made significant headway in the past year. Fargo was ahead of the game and piloted the project for the state, so they're functioning at a much higher level than many of the other regions in the state. But again, some of that comes back to having those available resources in Fargo. The COC has been asked to work on an initiative with the Department of Human Services. So new partnerships and collaborations is another great opportunity. And so that program is called the Housing and Health Initiative. And then we've also asked to be a part of the Olmsted Commission. So a couple new partnerships and collaborations in the works. One of the Continuum of Care grants that was formerly with the Department of Commerce is also being reallocated to the North Dakota Department of Human Services. So that will further our partnership with them as well. And then the North Dakota Interagency Council on Homelessness has been revived and is administered by the North Dakota Housing Finance Agency. Dave Floor at the Housing Finance Agency is my boss and kindly put that over to me as well. So Mayor Mahoney is a part of that group. We met a few times. We need to set up another meeting again. But the one thing we did do with that is that a report was put together last year for the governor, somewhat similar to Fargo's State of Homelessness report, very different information as it covers the whole state, but that will be continued. That will continue to be submitted on an annual basis. So we'll be bringing more awareness to the governor's office as far as the state of homelessness in the state of North Dakota as well. And then just in conclusion, so my wish list, along with Jill's, was for more permanent supportive housing, but mine would be on a larger scale of more permanent supportive housing across the state, and just really affordable housing for all. Housing is a human right, and no one should be living on the streets in their cars or hopping from couch to couch. The second thing would be resources, and not just agencies, but the staff at those agencies to be available across the state to help all individuals and families in need that would provide wraparound services. So back to that permanent supportive housing, even after they are housed, to help them stabilize and be successful. And then just finally, I would really just like to give a big shout out to the city of Fargo. You all saw a need and it was addressed with the Gladys Ray shelter, and just really everything that you continue to do for your city. Your continued support is really amazing. And coming into the Continuum of Care, I wish that every community would jump on board a little more like Fargo has and step up to the plate to offer some services to individuals that really could use it in other parts of our state. And with that, I'll open up for questions. Nicole, unless you want to move on.
No, I think we have time for a few questions for Chanel, if any would like. Thank you so much for your presentation, Chanel, while we look around for questions.
Chanel, this is John Strand. I'll ask the dumbest question in the world routinely. I'm from a little town out there, and so many of our little towns out there have, for example, empty elementary schools or school buildings. My whole life, I wonder, why can't we turn them into housing?
You know, we could. I know, so my dad is from Gladstone, North Dakota, which is a tiny little town about 10 miles west of Dickinson. And somebody actually did buy that school there and turned it into their own personal house. I think it becomes a matter of funding. And then it also becomes a matter of, some of those schools might not be safe, right? So there might be that safety component to it. But the other side of that is there is a lot of rehabilitation that needs to be done to turn those into housing. There's one large kitchen in it, so it maybe a shelter would be more appropriate than trying to subdivide it into housing units because of you've got the bathrooms and the kitchens and all of that. That would need to be added to each individual unit if you were going to turn it into like a permanent supportive housing type situation. So it's always a possibility, but money is always a concern, how you're going to do it. And then to staff it in those little towns is another really big issue. Who's going to manage it and who's going to take care of it?
Let's run around the table. Any other questions? Anybody?
Commissioner Strand.
Yes.
Chanel, I just want to thank you for the shout out for the city of Fargo. And I especially like the fact that a lot of people on this table today are partners with you on this issue. Homelessness is a concern for us. And I think Nicole just said we're at the highest count we've ever had right now. So I want to thank you for your hard work and our continued work to do better and continue to try to do better. And like Jill says too, you get supportive housing and then people are able to get into units and do things that are marvelous. So we as a city are continually committed to do what we can do in the homelessness and see what we can get people into housing. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, Nicole, should we move on to our next topic? And thank you, Chanel, very, very, very sincerely.
Yeah, and I'll just say, as Trenton is making his way to the microphone on behalf of the Land Trust, we're extremely thankful that the state has a Continuum of Care coordinator with Chanel. The previous coordinator was doing double duty and like 3 other jobs at the same time. And we do have a great partnership with Minnesota and Carla in terms of the cross borders. But without Chanel and that position leading the charge, you can imagine all of our partners lack coordination. And most of our HUD money that we're going to be getting as part of the ESG and COVID, et cetera, requires coordination of the COC. And so some of these, the data example that Chanel mentioned is absolutely hard on. I mean, I think there wasn't many days during the pandemic, and these meetings are going to start back up next week, where we have weekly meetings with shelter directors. And most often the conversation is about data and the form we're using for administrating entry. And how do we find that person as they go from shelter to shelter or need to need, and how do they get that rating? And it's crazy that we end up in those conversations as we try to advance this topic in homeless prevention. So thanks to Chanel, that's all to say, thanks to Chanel, and we need that leadership at the state, absolutely. So with that, I'll point over to Trenton to introduce himself.
Thank you, Community Development team, as well as Nicole and others, for allowing me to come and share about the Land Trust and what we're doing. For those of you that aren't aware, just a real brief history. Back in 2015, with the workforce study that was completed, it was noted that affordable housing opportunities for our workforce were a major barrier for us to attract and to retain a skilled workforce. From that workforce study, the FM Area Foundation went out to find a solution for that, did a lot of research, a lot of digging, and came across the Land Trust model, which they then spent the next 3 years implementing and trying to find a way to make it happen here in Fargo, getting a lot of stakeholder advice and feedback as well. In 2018, they actually officially launched and then hired me as their first executive director here in May of 2020, so just about a little bit over a year ago. And we've been, ever since then, we've been kind of hitting the ground running, trying to build more affordable owner-occupied homes. So the Land Trust is just a little bit different than some of the other programs. We're right after people that are moving from a renting situation and need a little hand, stepping stone, if you will, to get into a home ownership opportunity. So what we do is we help to provide a subsidy or gap assistance funding to families in need to get into a home ownership opportunity. From that, to get into the details a little bit more, the way the land trust works, we separate the land actually from the purchase of the home. That's how we offset the subsidy. The family would actually then agree to share their equity with the next family moving into that home, which then maintains the affordability of these homes forever. So really with a one-time investment, the theory is that we'll be able to maintain the affordable rate for the next workforce generation as well. And then in turn for that, they also have to pay a lease fee. Really, we end up being partners in the deal, so we work with them to make sure they're successful in their home ownership. What that means to us is that we've put together a robust stewardship program where not only are we worrying about getting people into homes, but then taking the time to train them and give them the knowledge and the skills they need to be a responsible homeowner, to learn how to properly set a household budget, to prepare for when that furnace goes out and the like, as well as getting involved in the community. If we're going to attract people in as part of our call, if we're going to be attracting people into our community, we feel it's very important that they need to get connected into our community as well. So trying to find them opportunities that they can join civic organizations, clubs, how to get more involved within their school, or maybe even finding the right doctor for their family as well. So really trying to take a very holistic approach to trying to get people into a successful home ownership opportunity. Since then, since I started back in May 2020, we have been busy raising money so that way we can start providing more subsidies for these homes. I'm happy to report that just last Thursday we had an open house for our very first homeowners, which will be moving into one of our twin home units that we collaborated with City of Fargo and Rebuilding together as well to construct. We'll also, there's another twin home as well, and also happy to say that we have all 4 of them now sold and working to move the families in. Also happy to report 2 of those, or 50% of those, are people that are moving to Fargo. So bringing talent to our areas, which is again part of our mission as well as bringing people to our area. In addition to those projects that we're kind of wrapping up, we're working on a few more. On First Avenue South, we have a couple lots over there that we're working to develop a couple more homes that we will then turn around and sell at an affordable rate to maintain their affordability through our shared equity model. We also have been working with the planning department in the city of Fargo on a few other projects related to some infill lots or vacant lots as well. I will admit, when we first got our start a year ago or so, we really had the idea of new developments and being part of, as town continues to grow, being part of that and building new homes and new developments. But it came very quick to us in the idea that really we have to start looking at our core neighborhoods and in other areas where we have a lot of vacant lots or infill lots, blighted homes. We just started to really understand that if we can take those homes and repurpose them or rebuild them, whatever it might be, we can then really transform an entire community or neighborhood. Certainly could help to revitalize a neighborhood school as well. So that's really been our focus over the last year. Really has been more infill lots and vacant lots as well. Which does lead me to the magic wand question, and John and I have had this conversation a couple different times, and my answer might change a little, but really I think for us it really comes down to funding. Certainly having the financial resources to make sure that we could provide and meet the need of our community with how many affordable homes we would need to build, as well as making sure that we can sustain those operations and in the stewardship program as well. So that'd really be, from an organizational standpoint, one of our big needs. With that being said, though, more from a philosophical standpoint, we'd really like to have our homeowners graduate out of our program. Although in the land trust, you can own the home you sign a ground lease, which means you can own the home for 99 years. That lease is renewable and inheritable, so technically you can live in the home up to 200 years. We'd like to see our families, because of our stewardship program, understand the knowledge and gain the wealth and the equity that they desire to move on to a more conventional home ownership opportunity if so desired. So really giving them those skills to really come learn with us and then move into a more permanent home situation or conventional home ownership situation. A couple of our barriers that we have right now, certainly availability. There's just, for affordable homeowner occupied homes, there just is not a lot of availability out there right now, along with affordability. So if you look at June of 2020 to June of 2021, the average sold home price in our community as a metro area rose $47,000. The median price rose $37,000. So when you start to think about that and you think about the jobs at Amazon and some of those others that are coming to our area at $15, $20 an hour jobs, our homes are just becoming out of price for a majority of our families. I know that the National Home Builders Association uses the stat that for every $1,000 that a home price increases, another 200 home buyers or potential home buyers are priced out of the market. So if we take that $37,000 median price increase, that's just about 7,400 people that were just priced out of the market from becoming homeowners. And that's where we come in to help bridge that gap. So that'd be another one of our big issues. As it relates more to our clients, credit. Credit's a big issue for a lot of the people that we're working with, and not what you expect. Not that they're have too high a debt to income ratios or any of those. It's actually little to no credit history. I've worked with families that are doing all the right things, have paid for cash all their life. I never knew this was possible, but we had one gentleman who has a credit score of 0, has never had a credit card or any kind of financing in his life. And I had to tell him that you're actually way better off than a lot of other families, but can't get a home because he hasn't ever had credit. We also have the other extreme. I just had a conversation with a family where their household income is over $100,000 and they can't get into a home because they're saddled with a lot of student debt from getting their masters in other educational opportunities. So there's kind of a wide spectrum, but credit is a big issue for us as well. One other quick thing, we've certainly have really been partnering with the city of Fargo and a lot of our ideas and kind of where we want to go. And I appreciate the partnership we have with the city of Fargo and the planning department. I just truly believe that this housing issue that we're facing is much bigger than just one entity. As you can tell, there's 3 presenting here. There was some that presented last time, and I'm sure more to come as well. And I just think being collaborative and making sure that we're all working together for one common goal certainly will help get us to where we need, and certainly will lead to a much bigger impact within our community. So with that, I'll actually, just for time's sake, I'll open it up for any questions you might have of the land trust as well.
Go around the table. Anybody at all for Trenton?
I have a question. Do you only construct new homes or do you rehabilitate existing homes?
Currently, we're only constructing new homes, but we would like to rehabilitate homes as well. So ideally, especially when we look at some of these historic neighborhoods, we'd love the opportunity to come in and rehab a home and then put it back on the market, help maintain that historic preservation as well, and just that community feel. So that would certainly be our first and foremost thought on homes. Unfortunately, the one that we bought here back in June needed to be tore down, and so we're working on that right now. But yes, rehab would certainly be part of our plan.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah, Commissioner Strand.
Absolutely.
Trenton, you'd mentioned 2 people coming into the community. Out of curiosity, what industry are they working in?
One is a nurse, which Dr. Bill Heegard is on our board. And so when I told him we have a nurse moving to town, his eyes lit up because that's a very big need within our community. And then another one actually is in the armed forces.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So Trenton, how does somebody out there listening get into the system? How do they get their name to you and apply and get considered for ownership?
Yeah, there's a couple different ways. One, we work with a lot of realtors that are in our community, so they can certainly talk to their realtor. A lot of them would know about our program. Certainly, we have a website and those things as well with our contact information. Another one is actually your banker. We have 5 preferred lenders here in town, and so that would be another opportunity. And we actually are continuing to partner out as far as we work with like community action partners, doorsteps. We've worked with Fargo Housing as well, and a few other organizations. So when we have homes that are available, we're continuing to reach out to those sources as well, beyond shelter and on down the line. But otherwise, a lot of it's been word of mouth. And then also, like I said, just every time we have a home, we list it on the MLS. So that's another way that people will find out about us.
Okay, anybody else? Nicole? turn it back to you to wrap up.
Thank you, Trenton. And I guess just to conclude, you might be wondering where we're going with the series of presentations. And again, one of the primary goals was to, the Fargo Planning Department and our work would not be fruitful if our partners weren't doing the hard work. And so that's the idea, is to show you as we move ahead how our partners are taking grants and funding and turning those into action. And there are some common barriers or some common wish lists. And so hopefully in the future, as we get towards into 2022, we look at some of those housing strategies or strategic discussions on how do we collectively move that needle forward. I couldn't have said it better than Trenton just said at the very end of his presentation on that future. Some things to look forward to. First of all, we're in the process of doing a needs assessment. Again, that supportive needs, housing needs kind of gap, and program services, if you will. We partnered with Beyond Shelter as they look on at some management of some properties. We were very curious on the data that they would find, so we partnered on that to find that data. So we should hopefully, by the time we meet next time in November, have some updates for that, as well as you might hear rumblings and discussions as we work at the metro level through Metro Cog on doing a region-wide housing study. And so that's to talk through all types of housing needs. But as you heard here, how do we talk about that, either that, silver tsunami that we hear, or the future of housing needs and housing market needs, and what those collective gaps are at the region base. We kind of understand Fargo and its micro, but we don't really quite understand the macro as it's happening regionally. And so we reached out to Cindy Gray's team at FM MetroCog. She's did the survey that you might have seen come out last month. We're starting to work on that scope of work and estimates, looking at joint partners and helping support that project. I think it's looking at about $150,000 scope of work that's starting to get penciled out. The last housing study we did in 2015 was about $50,000 in scope, so you can kind of see the difference level of granular detail that we're trying to get to. So more information on that in November, but just to let you know that we're trying to start to collect some of this information, because I think what's most important is shared data and shared knowledge, so we're all talking about the same numbers. We hear a lot of numbers out there, but you can quickly peel back the layers and realize we're talking about different numbers. And so that's our goal, is if we can get to a collective understanding of what numbers are we actually talking about, so we can come up with a common goal. So lastly, I think that's all. Oh, one of them also is the city's undertaking a kind of a financial impact study called a ROI, rate of return on investment, if you will. It's kind of a financing term, not really used to it in terms of land development activities. But as we start to talk about land development activities, what does that return on investment look like? So that's going to also be some information that will be coming back to us this fall in a study that we're doing right now with some financial planning experts that the city has undertaken. So, so look forward to more information coming collectively as we kind of get our agenda ready for our meeting next quarter. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Nicole. And as everybody here in attendance and listening in can tell, we have some really capable people carrying the water for us and breathing life into these programs. We're really fortunate, to have these community partners and leaders in many sectors of our community. And part of our job sometimes is to not slow them down, or is to connect them to each other, or to help them breathe life into their mission without derailing them with things. So we have a role too to help facilitate these dreams and these missions. Any other questions while we on that topic? And Nicole and your team, thank you. Number 5 on the agenda, will that be an update from, is that Tia? That's right, your mic isn't working over there, is it? Tia Braseth's coming up to the microphone to share with us.
Can you hear me? Okay, yes. Our microphones are still not working back there. I was just going to say I don't really have any updates that I need to present to you. I've actually kind of changed the format a little bit in the staff report that you have in front of you. This is typically an agenda item, but for now, we just had it as lay down item right now. So it's more than just a HUD report. This is what we typically are doing in our planning department. But if you did have any questions after looking at that, either Nicole or I could respond to those.
Okay, anybody at all? One obvious question, and Nicole alluded to it. We've kind of had a moment of catching our breath with the COVID activities, but I'm sensing that we're preparing for those floodgates to open up again, and this time we're more prepared. Just get a sense of how we're looking to potentially having another surge hit us like it is the rest of the country or other parts of the country.
Yeah, this is where I'm not sure yet. I have some concerns. I've been on the phone for the last couple of days with shelter directors. Our shelters, Mayor alluded to it, are at fullest capacity they've ever been. Our plan to handle winter overflow, and so this last year, in 2020, thanks to the federal funds, we had over $5 million of investments, both capital investments and staffing investments. All I can say is we've outgrown that, and what we thought we would be ready for this winter, we're not ready. And so I don't want to sound the alarm bells or anything, but the state support that we had is not there. On the county support is not there, and then the Minnesota support is not there at this point in time. So in terms of how we quarantine and isolate for those that are testing positive, all the tools we had in our toolbox up until this past June are not available. And this is just on the heels of some conversations I had this morning. So Michael and Mayor are hearing this for the first time. And so I'm not sure what the future looks like, but we're going to start having shelter calls on a weekly basis. And from our past experiences on the ESG dollars, emergency services grant dollars, those are not easy conversations. And at the staff level, at the planning department, I do not have the capacity to give to that. And so we're looking at maybe some contract employees that might be able to specialize in that subject matter full time. So that's what we're starting to kind of brainstorm. I had a probably half-day conversation with Jan Eliason on Friday. So we're kind of brainstorming on how do we get ready.
And Nicole, there's no doubt we're more prepared than we had been previously for this, but because you've had some practice the last year or so. But
none of those resources are there. We just got a report from a Minnesota shelter. They're at 85% COVID positive right now.
Oh.
So we're looking at 100% shelters being COVID positive and being Q&I.
And in addition to that, just, beyond homelessness, the eviction moratorium that is currently in effect for both counties right now is set to expire in October. And
actually, we're already hearing it. So probably 20 families a week are going through eviction courts right now.
Right. And I know other housing providers out there are kind of in the same boat. They're not sure what to expect.
We're fortunate we have the people we have in Fargo, at least for the moment, and thank you all for your leadership. And I'm glad the mayor is on the phone with us and assistant administrator. My sense is if you ring the alarm bell, we better all convene quickly or do what we need to on an emergency basis locally to support your team.
Yeah, I think the scary part, I appreciate that, Commissioner Strand. I think the scary part is we don't know what our answers are, our toolboxes are. And as our public health director said, they're tapped out as well. So the toolbox is not there.
And yet, this is reality. We have a challenge ahead of us going into this year. We've had a challenge this last year and a half or 2 years to work through. And everybody's learning. I think the most important thing is we take care of each other. I encourage you to take care of your team members, to make sure that your own batteries stay charged because there's a lot of draw on your energy. A sense of my leadership of this committee is I'm pulling back and trying to not spin us in different directions. Right now we're focusing in on housing. And there's lots of topics, but that's our primary focus right now, rather than throwing a bunch of curveballs at our staff who've got their hands full as it is already juggling all those situations. But keep us apprised. Mayor, do you have anything to say? Are you still there by chance? Is Mayor Mahoney on the phone? Okay, if not, anybody else anything else for the good of the order? Thank you all for your attendance today. We have a great community, lots of participants, and we have lots of work ahead of us. Our next meeting will be November 16th, and on that note, we stand adjourned. Thank you.